First, it was the Hatfields versus the McCoys, but now it's the Trumps versus the Bushes.
Bush and Dukakis on crime. Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend pass.
Okay? So, yesterday, the Trump campaign released an anti-Jeb Bush video on Instagram that harkened back to the days of the first President Bush's hard-hitting and highly successful 1988 campaign advertisement against Democratic opponent Michael Dukakis. That advertisement would go on to be immortalized in campaign lore as the Willie Horton ad. Now, for those of you too young to remember Willie Horton, or for that matter, Michael Dukakis, take a look at the ad.
Bush and Dukakis on crime. Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend passes from prison. One was Willie Horton, who murdered a boy in a robbery, stabbing him 19 times. Despite a life sentence, Horton received 10 weekend passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly raping his girlfriend. Weekend prison passes. Dukakis on crime.
That was an incredibly effective ad, and let me tell you, many people will suggest that that played a major role in the first President Bush winning that election. So, will Trump's latest effort to define Jeb Bush do as much damage as the Willie Horton ad did to Bush 41's first presidential opponent? You be the judge.
Yes, they broke the law, but it's not a felony. It's kind of it's an act of love.
Now today, Governor Bush fired back with a video of his own highlighting some of Donald Trump's less than conservative views espoused over the years by the GOP frontrunner.
I lived in New York City and Manhattan all my life, okay? So, you know, my views are a little bit different than if I lived in Iowa.
Partial birth abortion.
I'm very pro-choice. I am pro-choice in every respect and as far as it goes.
As far as single payer, it works in Canada. It works incredibly well in Scotland.
The fact is that 25% for high-income people, it should be raised substantially.
Who would you like representing the United States in a deal with Iran, with this regime there?
Well, I think Hillary would do a good job. Hillary Clinton, I think, is a terrific woman. I mean, I'm a little biased because I've known her for years.
You know, it's interesting. For starters, I got to say, it used to be you had to pay a lot of money for those kinds of advertisements, right? Not anymore. The Trump ad ran on Instagram. Cost nothing except to make it, and the Bush ad he put up on YouTube, I believe, right? So it's fascinating that in today's day and age you can save a lot of money while making your point. But Noah, what you're seeing here are two competing strategies. The Bush folks want to paint Trump as an actual liberal, and Trump wants to paint Bush as this immigrant-loving, amnesty-supporting, whatever. Which succeeds?
Trump absolutely succeeds, particularly in this primary.
Right?
Yes, because Trump's voters know that they're supporting somebody who's not a conservative. They don't care. It has nothing to do with his conservative principles. This is everything and anything to do with being a protest vote against Bush, which is why Trump's ad against Bush is particularly effective. Not because that there's a plague of violent criminality that's being perpetrated by illegal immigrants, but because we have some very high-profile incidents which are generating a lot of interest on the right, and that is going to really focus the minds on whether or not this is a person who's soft on illegal immigration.
Noah's got this right. None of us can disagree tonight because these are pretty much basic things. They don't care that Trump's not really a conservative. Those people voting for him, they're not even thinking about it.
Well, I think he's a conservative in some sense, in the best sense of the word for his supporters. He wants government smaller, and that starts with having fewer politicians. I'm not a big fan of what he stands for, but he has tapped in brilliantly to the fact that people are fed up. 23% support for Trump, 23% for Ben Carson. Iowan Republicans are ready to say, give me anyone who has never held office, and that's who I'm going to support.
What's interesting is, while they couldn't care less what Trump is really for or not
Or
for,
against.
they do watch very carefully what Jeb is being for. Now, Jeb is now being portrayed as being soft on crime, but his record would certainly say otherwise. As governor of Florida, he was a very pro-gun, strongly anti-crime. So the question is, will Trump's efforts succeed in making it impossible for Jeb to once again paint himself, Brad, as tough on crime?
Well, he has been very tough on crime. I want to be clear, I'm not sure being pro-gun means you're tough on crime. That's a different conversation. That said, he has a good crime record, but he also is, at the end of the day, a politician. And I think the average voter goes, yeah, maybe, kind of, sort of. But at the end of the day, do I trust a politician or do I trust an entrepreneur?
So,
whether it's good or not, we know what they're saying.
So Trump is spending all this time focusing on Jeb Bush. Why isn't he focusing on Ben Carson, who is the one who's actually tied him in the Iowa polls? He isn't saying a word about Ben Carson.
Not yet. He might eventually. I think that there's something a little bit more personal and really focused about this attack on Jeb Bush. But
it's really been Jeb Bush all the way along.
I think voters grade him on a different level than they grade Carson and Trump, because they're professional politicians. Respectfully, I don't think that there's anything to do with small government in that, but they really are grading these individuals on distinctly different qualities. And Jeb Bush is graded on a higher level because he's a professional politician.
Yeah. So you guys, we want to know your choice for the 2016 presidential nominee. We want to know who you want. Go to newsmaxpolls.com and cast your vote. Now, coming up next, we have the latest on that Kentucky clerk refusing to issue marriage licenses, not only to gay couples, people don't realize, but to all couples. So she's not charged with discrimination. Stay with us. It's going to be interesting.